Participants aged at least 20 years who completed 2 valid 24-hour dietary recalls and reported usual intake in both recalls were included from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey in 2003 through 2018. Mortality status as of December 2019 was obtained through linkage to the National Death Index. An eating occasion required consuming more than 5 kilocalories of foods or beverages. Eating duration between the last and first eating occasion was calculated for each day. The average duration of 2 recall days defined typical eating duration, which was then categorized as less than 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours, 12 to 16 hours. Reference group mean duration in U.S. adults, and greater than 16 hours. Multivariable Cox proportional hazards models were employed to estimate the association of eating duration with all-cause and cause-specific mortality in the overall sample and among adults with cardiovascular disease or cancer. Adjusted hazard ratios and 95% confidence intervals were derived. So most of the methods are in that very first, I mean, it's a bunch of statistical stuff, but are in the very first sentence. They went to something called the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey from 2003 to 2018, apparently some, vast database of data, as databases tend to be full of. And
the good ones.
The good ones. Participants who were at least 20 years old who completed 2 valid, complete, I guess, there may be other measures for validity, but I lost it. 2 valid, my God, I lost it. Oh, there it is. 24-hour dietary recalls. So this is self-reporting on what they say they ate and when, twice, and reported that was usually kind of what they did, and reported usual intake in both recalls. These are the people. And based on 2 days of self-reported recall, in which some people say, yeah, actually, I restricted my eating window to 8 hours or less. You probably have, I don't actually know if you have you ever tried to accurately, and it has to be, in this case, fairly precisely recall, not just what you ate, but when after the fact?
Very difficult.
It's very difficult. Furthermore, people think that they're better at it than they are. People lie about what they eat, and especially if people say that they are doing intermittent fasting, they will tend to lie about the windows during which they ate and misremember both things, both lie and misremember. 2 voluntary recalls is all it took to be included in this study, and then. Yeah, you have apparently, early death in people who reported twice that they were engaging in intermittent fasting by only eating within an 8-hour window on those 2 days. Furthermore, there is one other, the very last thing in the results. Here we go. I can't do it. Eating duration of more than 16 hours in a day was associated with a lower risk of cancer mortality in people with cancer. So if you don't sleep as much as you should be, because eating in a more than 16-hour window in a day means that you're not sleeping 8 hours, and you have cancer, apparently that's going to help you out.
Yeah. When I saw the headline on this one, my thought was, okay,
whatever.
It's garbage.
Right. But I don't know how it's garbage.
Is it worth the effort to figure out the way in which it's garbage?
And I don't know, right? I can't, because all we have is the abstract.
Yeah.
The only thing I can see here is, I know right away that 2 days of self-reports of intermittent fasting as evidence that these were people who were chronically intermittent fasting is not sufficient. It's insufficient, but presumably there's all sorts of other problems here. We just can't tell because this is all we got.
Okay, but this is just me leaving the reservation. But first of all, there's a dramatic perverse incentive here. Okay, you've got 2 papers from some weird conference. Neither paper makes any sense on scrutiny of its abstract that are making a splash in the world of people who imagine that they are data-driven. Right?
Yes.
So that incentivizes people to do whatever it is that resulted in this. In other words, garbage science that results in dubious conclusion that can be transmogrified into sensational headline. That's a career path, right?
Sure is.
What's more,
Several career paths. That takes that.
hell yeah.
Lots of people being paid to do that.
You do that right for long enough, you're going to end up a goddamn influencer. I'm telling you, it could happen.
And it makes me wonder that those are the only 2 abstracts I looked at, and there's hundreds of them. So,
Right. What else has been reported? There could be some gems.
So at some level, any new dire sounding, health pronouncement that comes out in the next week, like, see if it doesn't have an abstract at this conference in Chicago, because that was surprising. Like two of these things that are showing up right now, both attributable, and and they had these abstracts up, and they were I'm losing the word. They were embargoed until the start of the conference on the 18th of this month, and then suddenly they're released to the world, which I hope I'm wrong about this, but I also suspect that a lot of the press on both of these on both of these papers was actually done without even being there, without even seeing the talk. Which a talk will have more information and will allow for Q&A. I hope. I mean, that's what conferences are supposed to do. And so if these insane media reports are not even based on having seen a talk and having had the potential to engage with the authors of the study, but it's just that abstract, which you guys, the entire audience now has as much information as those journalists did. And you can see in the one case, the stories were just completely wrong. And I didn't bother going into all the intermittent fasting media reports because they just were all saying the same thing. And basically, if the research is bad, then you can't say anything. And we have no reason to think the research is good.